Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. If you were watching that last panel about digital strategies, you're going to enjoy the topics that we're going to discuss here today.
As a domain name and trademark lawyer, that was a lot of fun.
Across the street, 2 stages.
We also have some Emma Stone insights, if anybody wants to hear about Emma Stone.
To the restaurant across the street.
All right, my name is Chris Mondini. I'm with ICANN. It's a global nonprofit organization, and what we do is we organize and administer all the internet addresses of the world. So those are the IP numeric addresses that connect all our devices, 75 billion devices in the world, and also domain names that humans use to navigate the internet. And it's this techie, obscure part of the internet that you don't even think of. It's the one thing that needs some coordination globally. But as it turns out, this obscure techie aspect of the internet is presenting a wonderful opportunity for brands and their digital strategy. So today we have a couple of panelists that are very much in this space, Brian and Ben. I'm going to let you tell the crowd a little bit about the opportunity. You talk to businesses all the time about what is a top-level domain name, what are these custom domains, and why would a brand be interested? I'll start with you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. So, hey, everybody. I'm Ben Crawford. I'm the CEO of Mark Monitor Group. We work with many of the brands who are here today, and we do a whole bunch of things. So if companies are looking at launching a new brand, they usually get us to have a look at what domain names are already registered to see what chance they have of being able to get the domains. We also help them buy the domain name stealthily so people don't know, hey, this is a new brand coming out from this company. If they need money, we help them sell their domain names too. And so generally, we're the kind of go-to experts for them around this particular area. Maybe I'll hand over to you, Brian, just to introduce yourself and then.
Sure. Hello, I'm Brian King. I'm a trademark and domain name attorney and likely applicant representing RWS for the .rws top-level domain later this year. So very excited to be here.
So there are a number of examples that are up here on this slide. And Ben, I wanted to ask you, you've handled hundreds of companies' applications for these, like the Amazon, Microsoft, other big companies. How are you seeing brands use these domains?
Sure, Chris. So just to be clear what we're talking about here, as well as .com and .net, there is today .Chanel and .Nike. And you can see many other of the most successful brands in the world, the most valuable brands in the world, have obtained at the very top level of the internet their own brand. So whereas historically it was down to countries to have their country codes like .fr for France and .il for Israel, now brands are actually able to sit at the summit of the internet. This started back in 2012 where these brands and others and my company help brands apply for 280 of these domain names. So many of the largest companies in the world have got them. And to give you some examples of how they use them. A good example is if you have a product that has, for instance, a generic name. So if you think about Google passwords, so they use the domain name passwords.google. Obviously, if you tried to get passwords.com, you'll probably have to spend many millions of dollars to get that. But if you own the .google, you can get passwords.google at no cost. In fact, you can get any word in the dictionary at no cost. Similarly, think about Allstate Insurance, motorcycle.allstate, life.allstate. So for a marketer, this is an enormous gift to be able to essentially register any domain name you want connected with your brand. There are many other examples, but I would say another important one would be, think about swoosh.nike. So that's not a product, it's a marketing initiative. It's a gaming site related to the brand Nike. So again, thinking not only about product names, but about campaign names, about essentially anything you want to achieve to obtain as a marketeer, you can under your top-level domain name at zero cost. Probably a last example, and then I'll hand over to Brian, is the massive German insurance company DVAG. They actually have registered 10,000 domain names, one for every insurance agent. So this way, the brand itself has control over the marketing of all of its insurance agents. So obviously, if an agent switches to away from DVAG, they just switch the domain off. So it gives them a lot of control over their distribution.
So it's not just about online presence, but even your digital architecture and the many creative ways to use these names. Brian, your RWS, your company is planning to apply, you told me. And also, I know all of the panels here are talking about AI and all of these trends. Like, what trends led to that decision? What are your plans?
Yeah, I love AI for this conversation because it's probably the first time you might hear about, not about using generative AI, but how we went about our journey here was how do we get generative AI to use us? So we noticed, like many of the brands in this room, when Google launched the answer engine on the search engine results page, we lost ranking and web traffic for several keywords and search strings that we had previously ranked very highly for. And that's obviously a problem for marketing. So we looked at how our content on our website was structured and optimized our web content for AI, essentially for Google's search AI, so that we were providing the authoritative answer at the top of the Google search engine results page, if you can call it that anymore. Now it's an answer page. I think the latest data I saw was 70% of searches now stop there and don't go anywhere. So these are zero-click searches. So we're playing a new game now. We're not playing the SEO. This is not your father's SEO, right? You're trying to rank and be the authoritative answer for what people are looking for when they're looking for your brand. So having gone through that exercise ourselves and being a content company that localizes content for, again, many of the brands in this room, we looked at this and thought, okay, so if we have our own top-level domain, that's going to supercharge our ability to structure content and keywords related to our brand and how we are perceived and how we are searched for. And what we know about AI is that AI does best when it can learn from content that is structured. You know, loose text is not great for AI. It needs to learn on content that's structured. It works best that way. And so we're really looking forward to the opportunity to structure our domain names in a way that reflect how the content on the pages is structured and really leverage the top-level domain for that benefit, among others, that we could talk about.
So you've really thought very carefully about this, and that's great to hear about your plans. You mentioned the word authoritative, and I know the people have been talking about authentic, and you know, we're living in this age where trustworthiness, security, legitimacy, you know, they're all becoming much more valuable. And I know, Ben, you're advising a lot of brands and companies. You alluded to some of them before, but how are your clients, you know, this is managing a piece of the internet, but how are they looking in the security, legitimacy standpoint? What are they getting?
Well, so even though I think marketeers don't like it, suddenly many of them or us are now responsible for part of cybersecurity as well. I have a client, Japanese apparel company, and my client there who sits in the intellectual property and marketing teams between them, so he's managing the domain names. He said, how can you help me? Up until now, my job was selling trainers over the internet. Now my job is fighting criminals because 1,000 impersonation websites had jumped up as he'd sponsored one of the major sports events, and suddenly his job wasn't just finding customers. His job was how to distinguish the authentic brand from all of the impersonators across social, across websites, and so on. So this is a very common issue. So as you might imagine, financial institutions have made massive use of these new top-level domain names. So if you think of .JP Morgan, .Chase, .Barclays, .BNP Paribas, .HSBC, and so on, many of these companies have establish their own top-level domain name in order to educate their customers. If you get a link, if you get an email from a Barclays bank that doesn't end .Barclays, it is not us. It is a criminal. It is somebody else. This is an incredibly powerful method of authenticating. I guess another great example is where there's critical infrastructure involved. So if you think about, for instance, the domain name cloud.microsoft is used by Microsoft for the delivery of Office 365 and its cloud products. Again, why are they using .Microsoft rather than .com? Because they own that end to end. They're not reliant on any outside party. It makes it much harder to hack, to spoof, or in any other way to kind of deceive users. Similarly, we're working with one of the largest luxury brands in the world. They have one website on their .brand, only one, but it carries live all of their real-time retail sales data back to head office. And so again, when the cybersecurity team were asked, hey, should we do this on a .com or a .fr or a .it and whatever? It's like, well, hang on, we own our own .brand. That way we can eliminate a piece of the risk here and make sure we own this end to end. So in other words, if you're a marketeer and you're interested in a .brand, go and talk to the cybersecurity team because generally they're big supporters and they have budget.
Yeah, somebody in my organization, they were comparing like just registering a domain name, which we've all done, to buying a pair of shoes. But getting a top-level domain is like getting the whole shoe factory so you can make your own shoes. And, it's no easy feat. There's quite an investment. There's quite a lot of time. The application window is opening on April 30th. I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about how you're advising on how to prepare as well.
Sure. Yeah, and I would lean into the brand corollary to the cybersecurity story, and that you can really control your entire brand story with the .brand top-level domain, and whether that includes distributors or affiliates or influencers that are associated with your brand. It's so easy to control that environment when you can just remove it if they're no longer in compliance, when the deal runs its course with the influencer. So it gives you that level of control from cybersecurity and a brand perspective. And yeah, I think you asked me about advice for folks that might apply. I would say start now. Start looking at this now. Rally the troops. You will want to engage legal, trademark legal, cybersecurity teams, and brand team. And think about your brand strategy and your digital strategy, and to what extent it might include or benefit from having control over your entire digital identity at the domain name level. And there are a number of consultants and companies out there that can help you with that. We have signed on with Mark Monitor Group and their Com Laude brand to help us. We've gone through a feasibility study to see, okay, are there competitors? We have a short 3-letter brand, right? So we needed to be careful and think about, okay, are there other RWSs out there that are likely to conflict with us? Or is this a great opportunity for us? We're fortunate to have our matching 3-letter .com domain name, but that's because we were founded in 1958 and are a lot older a company than a lot of the brands in this room that don't have a short 3-letter .com. So start thinking about those opportunities from a brand perspective, a branding perspective, and what you want your digital identity to look like, and start pulling the right folks together, because it will take an effort from finance. There's a not insignificant application fee associated that will hit the books this fiscal year. So start bringing the right people together internally and engage with a consultant or advisor like Mark Monitor Group to help you pull those folks together and gather the right materials.
And I'll just mention the last time this opportunity was made available was in 2012. So this application window opens on April 30th of this year, and it's an application window that lasts us until August. So given all of this effort and planning and feasibility that you'll want to look at in your company, now is the time to get started if you haven't. And I know you're already helping companies. If you want to tell us what kinds you're hearing from and what you're
Sure.
telling them.
Yeah, maybe before I go on to that, Chris, I just would say back in 2012, I was involved in the same industry at the time, and I remember talking to this competitive set of telecommunications companies, and 3 out of 4 of them applied and with our help got their own top-level domain names. There's a reveal day when all of the applications are revealed long after the application window has closed, and on that day, the fourth competitor called me on my cell, and he said, "You were right. All of our competitive set applied except us. I'm in so much trouble. Can you get it for me?" And I said, "Look, you're going to have to wait till the next window." So that was 2012. The next window is now 14 years later. So I don't think he's still in that job, but it's something also very worth considering that we have a number of our clients who have said to us, "Look, we don't actually think this is for us, but it's probably worth doing like a little feasibility study, creating a document, and so on." So we got a record that we looked into it and so on. So if we do have questions asked in the future, well, hang on, how come you didn't apply for this? It's a piece of intellectual property that's only becomes available once every 14 years. And unlike trademarks, unlike other kinds of domain names, it's unique. There's only one .brand. It's not like all the different country codes or, trademarks have every jurisdiction in many, many different categories. So we got people like that. So people who missed out in the first round are lining up. Obviously, a lot of internet native companies makes a huge amount of sense. VC-backed companies that really need to make a big impact with a new brand that they bring out, particularly if that brand might be a generic word, a dictionary word, and so on. That's really, really hard to cover off with trademarks and .com domain names and so on. This is a kind of great way to just leapfrog all of that and sit at the top of the internet.
Yeah, and if I can put that timing in perspective, the last time this was possible to apply, like Ben said, 2012, companies like Uber, Spotify, Instagram were startups with 10 employees. So it's been that long in tech years since this was possible, and there's no set date for the next application window. So the time is now if you want to consider doing this, because we'll all be in different jobs when this comes around again.
And speaking of, the time between the windows is about writing the rules. And part of the rules have to do with the fact that only one entity can own .sky, for example, in this case. It's the only top-level domain that's .sky in the whole world. And also, by the way, sky is just a regular word, too. So all the rules that allow for there not to be conflicts, more than one party might apply for the same name or the same word. All of those are very much codified by ICANN, the nonprofit that I work for. And these guys are very much the experts on how to interpret all of those. One other very inspiring thing that some brands are doing is applying for these domain names in different alphabets. So, think about the world as we do. There are 5.5 billion internet users, and we're still trying to get the remaining 1.5 billion to use the internet. They don't use this alphabet that we see up here. They're using Devanagari, Cyrillic, Mandarin. And a lot of people are working really hard, and a lot of brands are getting, for example, their brand name in Mandarin letters for the Chinese market. And I don't know if either of you have worked in that space.
Yeah, I have, and I owe you quite a bit for a plug for our localization business, where we help many of the brands here localize their content into different languages and cultural representations online. It's a big opportunity, in order to address users in different markets. Historically, companies have done that with country code domain names like .cn in China. And this represents a way that you can keep your brand at the center of the user experience and then localize down to the local language. And we're kind of spoiled inside the US, where .com is present. Everything on the internet seems like it was built for us. right? Websites tend to be in English, and you can do business in US dollars, and they take Visa on the website and things like that. But outside the US, users really need to look for signals that content is relevant for them. And whether that's the country code domain or some other signal, the domain name structure can be a very powerful way to convey, yes, this content is for you. It's in Chinese. You can pay in renminbi. We have a WeChat for support, things like that can be signaled with these domains.
All right. Well, I wanted to point out that both Brian and Ben will be here, and we'll be mingling downstairs. I brought some handouts, so I'm definitely going to work the crowd with my handouts. If you were telling people in the audience, like, they get back to headquarters, they've learned about this top-level domain program, what would you tell them their first step should be once they, what should they do after this to get the ball rolling? Who should they talk to?
Well, I can tell you, if you come and talk to us, to Mark Monitor Group or Comlaude or Fairwinds, which is the 3 companies that make up our group at the moment, first thing we're going to do is say, what do you actually want to apply for here? Because there, as Chris mentioned, there's all kinds of rules and regulations. So if your company name happens to match with a dictionary word or happens to match with the name of a province of any country in the world, or is on a banned list, a blacklist, and so on, you want to find that out immediately. So that's a service that we pretty much can render in a space of a day or two, really help you out as to whether this is for you or not. And secondly, it takes a whole bunch of preparation internally and commitment for a company to go ahead with this. The actual application is hundreds of pages long. There's a substantial amount of money involved. There's a long waiting period often to wait to be properly diligenced and so on. So what we do is help companies kind of workshop it internally and measure whether there's a commitment there. Because like I mentioned before, even if you feel like this isn't something that you want to do, you may want to have a very clearly documented reason about why, how you looked at it, and was it a budgetary reason? Was it a branding reason? Was it a question of saying, hey, cybersecurity or marketing or whatever isn't on board with this? Because if you're asked questions later down the track, it's a good idea to have those answers documented. So we help people out with that too. And then obviously, when it comes to writing the application, it's a big job, and as in the last round we wrote 280 of them, we kind of got it down to a fine art, and it's way easier to work with someone who's a partner that can just handle it for you. And then of course there's issues of contestation. There could be problems that you could have with the ones that you've applied for, and we can help you through that process as well. So it's complicated. Some companies do it all themselves or shop around and get lots and lots of advisors. We've tried to make it simple and be a one-stop shop.
And as you say how much is involved with it, Ben, it occurs to me to remind folks that this window opens next month. So get started.
Yeah, April 30th to August 12th. And it's really a piece of internet architecture. And so on behalf of ICANN, the global organization that has as its mission an expanding, interoperable, resilient, and stable internet, if you apply and you operate one of these top-level domains, you're actually a steward of an expanded part of the internet. So all of this is actually in the service of an interoperable internet that's serving all of us. I'm very happy to take a question if we have time. All right. Was there any, let's say, commentary on when you're down in the bar right after this and you meet somebody that asks you about this opportunity that wasn't in this talk, what were you saying?
I'd say we talked about the kind of time-sensitive nature of this. There are a number of opportunities for this audience, really branding and adding a level of authenticity to your brand and your customers' digital experience and how they interact with you online. Kind of a unique opportunity that happens now, and we don't know when it'll happen again. So we're here to kind of raise awareness. It's something that you'll want to look at. Cool opportunity. And I don't want to limit this to just like the tech brands, because there's a lot of opportunity across industries.
So you're in the bar later. Somebody says, "Why are you here?" What do you tell them?
Well, I think I'd say what I said at the beginning, that in the past there was .com and .net. Now there's also .Chanel and .Nike. And why not your .brand as well?
All right. I think that's a great way to leave it. I'm going to say thank you very much to the panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. And thanks very much for the brand
Thank you very
innovators for
much.
having us.